Hello there and welcome to the latest edition of the About Small Business podcast. In this session, I'm actually going to be chatting to Jemma Bushby, who runs Creative Kitchen. I've been looking forward to speaking to Jemma for quite some time. She works with young people, as indeed do I. And so I'm hoping we're actually going to learn one or two things. Jemma, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. If we can start off, Jemma, do you mind just telling me a little bit about what it is Creative Kitchen does?
Yeah, so Creative Kitchen is a cooking school based in Consett, Durham. We run cooking classes for all ages, from 18 months right up to teens, and we are looking to expand into running some adult sessions too.
Right, and you've got your own premises.
So we do, yeah. We've recently opened up sort of not a shop if you like, but a cooking school in Consett.
Right, so a cooking workshop
Mhm.
where so people can come along, they can get their
Oh, yeah.
hands
So if you imagine the Bake Off, like the Great British Bake Off, that's kind of the theme we're going
right
for.
in concert. That's fantastic. Brilliant stuff. So in these sessions then, obviously there are practical skills, as I've just been saying. Are the kids learning about nutrition, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we run several different sessions. We run after school clubs for children, which can focus on just being fun. And the main thing I'm big on is skills and building independence. So each week we look at a new recipe and it's a different skill focus. Um, Following on from that, as they get a little bit older, we start looking more at nutrition and sort of what's going into these recipes
Yeah.
and why. And it's not all about healthy eating. It's offering a variety of recipes for children to explore. So they've got those skills and the information they need to
Right.
their own.
So they get knowledge, they get skills,
Yeah.
and based on that, they can then make their own decisions about healthy eating, which I suppose in many ways that's actually better, isn't it? Because I mean, well, I know you're a parent, I am too. We both know how hard it can be to try and enforce our will on unwilling children. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic approach. One thing that has fascinated me about this, because I did mention to you, I've come across you before in my work in schools. A lot of schools have heard of you. My wife did say she's heard of Creative Kitchen, and her feedback is that you are very good with your with your the feedback from the workshops, and B, that you're actually very, very reasonably priced in terms of what you might sort of reasonably expect from a child's club. What is fascinating though is I do seem to recall, I can't remember how many years ago it was, but there was a big push that kids should be learning a little bit more about how to cook, about nutrition in schools.
Yeah, it's still sort of happening now, and I think one of the issues that we've got with schools is, so I'm a secondary school teacher, sort of by trade.
Right.
So one of the issues that you have is that there's not enough time, there's not enough resources, and there's not enough money for that to happen in schools at the moment.
It is a common issue, isn't it? Sort of people coming out with the funding. So is that what sort of inspired you to take this leap? And
So yes, I know it's a little bit of a personal journey. So I absolutely loved teaching,
yeah,
loved it so much, and I still do. But I had three children, two under two, and I
right.
just found it unrealistic. The workload, the pressures, as you know, to
It's
continue.
as I say. I mean, for my job, I've travelled all over the country in different schools. Everywhere I go, it's the same issue. Just the time, the amount of I suppose having been forced to make a choice between your own family and
Yeah.
the kids who, you do form an attachment as well,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
Any teacher that's half decent, I think,
Yeah.
really genuinely cares about which it does frustrate when people do complain about schools. It's like, maybe we're not the amazing be all and everything that parents would like us to be, but we do care,
No
and
doubt.
I think that is a common thing. So I mean, going back to when you were at school, then I mean, have you always sort of been? Is that always been your thing, the cooking
So,
side of it?
no, not really. Outside of school, yes. There's sort of home video footage of me, baking with my younger siblings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much to my mum's, amusement of me. Yeah, I don't even want to describe these videos. Quite a state, coming up with our own sort of concoctions.
Is
and
it going to be a
sorting
waste
it
of
out.
time me asking you for these clips to put in the podcast?
Yes, you're not going to get them. There's actually a couple of folders I've encrypted so no one can see those ever. No, so at school it was more sort of, it was still quite creative. It was textiles and business studies, that sort of thing that I really enjoyed. And then I sort of came full circle and totally not fell into it, but fell into my role, if I'm honest. So my background in business management, that's what my degree's in. Then went on to do teaching. Left teaching because I wanted more work-life balance, more time with my family. But before I left teaching, there was sort of no jobs, very limited opportunities as a business teacher. You take on any work you want because you want to be a teacher. That was sort of where I was at. Took on some supply work, ended up getting a maternity post as a food teacher, sort of retrained in that school, and then went on that way.
Right. Okay. So you decided on a degree in business studies.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Was it a teacher?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't linked to teaching.
Sorry, you said you were secondary.
Yes, I was.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, you do your degree and then you do a teaching qualification. Right. So you got your business degree.
Yeah.
Were your sights set on running your own business quite early on then?
I think so, yeah. I did have a keen interest of having something of my own. I'm quite project led. I like to be involved in things and seeing sort of the process in the end, all coming together. But I also knew from a young age I wanted to teach. There's me, we're all still with my grandmas, all the cousins, and I'd be the teacher. That was me. My grandma laughed because she was involved in the class as well. And then obviously as I grew up, it was sort of, I was torn. Do I go into teaching? Do I go and do a business degree? Where was I? And I decided to take the business degree rather than going straight into, training to be a primary school teacher.
Yes.
And then I made the jump because I still think I still want to do this.
It's interesting. I do remember when I did my training, because I went into teaching sort of quite late. I was a mature student at 30. And it was the same thing. I mean, for me, when I was in my early 20s, when a lot of people were doing the PGC, I just knew I wasn't mature enough. I knew that I'd not be able to deal with that level of responsibility. I didn't like the idea of only potentially being a few years older than the people in front of me. That put me off a little bit. And I think just having those extra skills under your belt that could take you in a different direction if needs be. I mean, do any of your family run their own business? Or?
No, it's in the first.
Right, so you're the first to... That's quite amazing. It's also interesting as well, that doesn't seem to be something as a society, not just necessarily like with family, but as a society, like sort of, I do remember being kind of celebrated as the first person in my family to go do a degree.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah.
But that's not the case with working for yourself so much, is it?
No.
And I think in many ways, I mean, I don't know about you, I think I would argue it's quite possibly, well, I think probably now anyway, certainly more of an achievement.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, congratulations on both.
Thank you.
In terms of your business degree, how did you find that? Was it? Are you looking back on that now, thinking that was really useful?
Yeah, parts of it. Yeah.
Can you remember were you learning like sort of things like marketing?
So that side of things I really enjoyed. And I think again that's the creative side of things, isn't it?
Yes.
That side of things I really did enjoy. We did some accounting sort of modules. Not really for me.
I'm looking at your face as you say.
Yeah, I'm all right with numbers, but it didn't. Yeah, it didn't.
It
didn't work for us.
I think it's fascinating because I mean I'm the same. I love the creative side of anything, and I do my VAT returns. I do my company accounts, then pass on to my accountant. But it's not. I get a sense of achievement having done it because it's not something that I think is necessarily a strength. But it's just really funny watching your face. It's like you can see that she's not a.
No, I can do numbers. I can work with them when I need to, but I don't get the kick out of it like I would do. Other
the creative side of it, and it's interesting that you've then chosen that as your name, Creative Kitchen.
Yeah.
So is the focus then of your business, was it always just to give young people skills, or were you looking perhaps at doing something, literally being creative in the kitchen for yourself and then selling that as a service? Or
I think more it was for the children. The part about teaching that I absolutely loved was the planning, and seeing that all come together, getting all those ideas out there. And anyone who knows me will know how full my head is of ideas. It doesn't stop. So that's one of the things that I loved about teaching, and you can see that in our classes is that we link out, especially the younger ones, we'll link our recipes to a story. So there's a bit of a theme going on there.
Okay.
Because we through teaching, you find that children are more susceptible to learn if they can link it to something. If you've
Yes.
got like a either a real life link or sort of a project link. So I'll use this for example. So Lydia from the school kitchen is looking to update the menu. What can we make that's going to be exciting for the nursery children? And you've tied that in straight away. You've given the children a
Yeah.
project. We're not just going to make this. We're going to make this because, and it gets them thinking about the reasoning behind it and all those other elements that can.
That sense of purpose.
Yes.
Like sort of why are we doing that? And I
Yeah.
think that's that is quite crucial. It's like if a kid's there wondering what on earth they're doing,
Yeah.
it's not going to work. I mean, I do recall obviously as an English teacher, and you're trying to teach kids Shakespeare or something like that. You're on a bit of a hide into nothing unless you can make it relevant in some way. To which I suppose is part of the job. But so is your time as a teacher, did you kind of while you're doing that, did you then formulate your plan?
Yeah.
Know what you could do?
So it kind of came about when I was on maternity leave with my youngest. I did a couple of sort of taster sessions in local schools and over the holidays, and sort of by this point, school was it wasn't a great place to be, and the culture wasn't great.
So you were talking seconds.
So I'm 2018.
Right.
2019. And then I left teaching at the end of 2019 and set up in January 2020. Lovely time to set up.
Just going to say, it's quite an interesting choice
Yeah.
there. Obviously, pandemic. It's a fascinating one because for me, working with schools, I do remember sort of the 2019. There seemed to be the idea that budgets were going to start to get a little bit better. I know the government at the time had promised more, and then the pandemic hit, and then that just blew everything up. And it's I mean certainly now it doesn't sound to have got any better. It's fascinating though, because I do remember when I trained as a teacher, and I think that was we're talking back in 2000, and I do remember like sort of it's very doom and gloom then, but there was legislation that had come in about work-life balance, and they were trying to address it, and it was making a difference. But I think a lot of teachers just said they just had enough by that point. They'd given up.
Yeah.
And I remember people saying to me, what are you doing this for? What are you doing this for? And it's a bit of a glum place, and it's just systematically seemed to go down and down. So I do know what you're talking about with that sort of 2018. I think what you would have gone through would have been much harder, I think, because it has got progressively harder.
It just didn't seem to sort of, you can't switch off from it.
No.
The workload and the expectations, it was.
It's that thing, it's like, there's I don't think it's like this as much anymore. I don't know what you think about it, but like, there was certainly this bizarre where you start at 9, you finish at 3, and you get all these holidays.
No, definitely
And
not.
it's-
Definitely not.
And I mean, to be fair, I mean, anyone that said that, so if it's so easy, why don't you do it? Then like, no one's leaping, I mean, the missing recruitment targets for teaching all the time at the minute. And I don't know, I think that there is still a bit of a culture generally that life is all about hard work, and we must really do as much as we possibly can. Holidays are frowned upon and that kind of thing, but sort of younger people now, I think, are saying no.
Yeah, and I think the older I get, the more I see that and what is important. There's a shift in sort of how I feel about things. So
Yes.
if I'm gonna put myself in for a class, it has to be worth it for me to give up that time with my children, and that's sort of my new approach.
It's interesting because when we were talking earlier on before we started filming, we were talking about networking events and things like that. And what I did find interesting that you said was like your time is so precious, and I thought, are you charging an absolute fortune per hour? And then it did become immediately clear that you're then saying no, because you don't have a lot of free time.
No.
I know you are. I mean, to be honest, I've seen your van going around Consett. You do look like you're busy.
Yeah.
And how many kids have you got?
3.
3 children. I mean, I've got 3 girls. I've got 2 girls. I know how time consuming that can be. And And it's just, to find a way that you can.
Or doing something that I love.
Yeah.
Still working and enjoying and doing what I love, but being able to be a man as well. And that's
Yeah.
the most important thing for me.
It's an interesting thing because I think most people would sort of say that is the most important thing to them, but you don't have that flexibility with a job, do you?
Yeah.
Certainly not with the teaching profession, because yes, you've got the advantage because the holidays are still there, and whilst you've got jobs to do, you do still have a lot of flexibility over that time, I suppose. But you can't take holidays when you want.
Yeah.
You're very
Because
tight.
it's a nipping out to an assembly.
Yes.
Or making your own child's parents' evening and not having to, stick with your work arrangements. And it is something that I'm very conscious of, and I do try to reflect throughout the business to those who were employed by us as well.
Yeah.
Having that flexibility, so during Christmas, weeks leading up to Christmas, everyone's got all the nativities, the school performances, and we'll we've got a chat like who's doing what when, what shifts do we need to swap, who do we need to be where, because I don't think we should have to miss out on that.
Yeah.
We're going to work, and I love what I do, but we're going to work to provide for our own.
Yeah. I think that's it's quite forward thinking as well, because ultimately, if you're going out of your way for people that work for you, they're going to be aware of that and they're going to try and reciprocate in some way. They're going to go that extra mile for you if you need it. So I think it's, I suppose, an investment, really, isn't it, in your staff? So how long were you actually teaching for with actually working for schools?
About 7 years.
All that, so was that full time throughout the whole lot, or was that include any periods of supply that you mentioned earlier?
No, so I did a little bit at the beginning. I was cover supervisor, so teaching in one school, taking on any sort of subject.
What did you think of that?
I didn't mind it because I was in one school. I loved certain subjects.
Yeah.
It's quite tricky, but because you built up a rapport with the students,
It makes
made it a little
difference,
bit
doesn't it?
yeah. I then went on to pick up some ethics and belief lessons because I was going to do anything to teach. I was really determined I was going to get this full-time teaching role. Some tricky topics there. I've been brought up Catholic, so some of those subjects didn't sit quite well with me, but nonetheless, they needed discussing. And then I realised that another one of my skill sets that previously mentioned, I really enjoyed textiles and being creative. And back then, the textiles teacher was also the food teacher. So I started spending a lot more time in the food department and sort of picking up sort of more skills there and getting the experience. And then it sort of snowballed.
It's interesting that those skills are kind of lumped together, I suppose.
I think it's the whole traditional, women's job, if I'm honest. The home economics, your sewing, traditionally, if we're going way back, is where it perhaps comes from.
It is interesting. Fully enough, last night's episode of this podcast was I was chatting to a chap called Brian McElderry, who's he's a chef.
Yes.
And he founded UniChef, the chefs unions, and he was telling me what's interesting, because I remember growing up, and I'm 53 this year, and I grew up at a time where that pretty much was the view. Sort of, it will be more common for the woman to stay at home and do those jobs like the sewing, the cooking, and that side of things. And Brian was telling me that when he started his trade. Brian's older than me, but that most of the kitchen staff were women at the time as well. And then there seems to be this shift, and now you've got a lot of celebrity chefs, most of whom appear to be men now. I still remember the Delia Smith, people will test their age on that, or Delia Smith's cookbook. But now it's obviously like your Jamie Olivers, your Gordon Ramsay, Michael Pierre White, and that kind of thing.
And I think food and food education is starting to get more of a sort of status of its own.
Yes.
So where previously it's been sort of mixed in with other subjects, it's now sort of, it's not just D&T, it's sort of food, cooking and nutrition, and it's got its own sort of like place, if you like. And I know there's quite a big community amongst food teachers who are trying to push for that, to get it, we're not just cooking, there's a lot more that goes on.
It's treated a little bit more as a science now as well, isn't it? So it's afforded that kind of credibility. I think what's interesting is how it goes alongside the fitness.
Yes.
Because certainly if you just flip on Instagram and you've got 1,000,001 sort of, sort of gym owners who are also offering that nutrition advice and things like that. Because I was going to ask you, do you find that what the balance is, just since we've said about those traditional ideas, do you find that you've got a reasonable balance of boys and girls coming to your classes?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. We're probably about 50-50 split on uptake, to be honest, in terms of girls and boys. Yeah.
It's because again, the practical side of things, if we're going on stereotypes, then the lads do love that, don't they? They're getting their hands involved and getting dirty, and so the 50-50. So I suppose as a society we are making some progress then.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I personally feel that the food should be linked more, like you say, with the fitness, with the ye, rather than being in. I'm not saying it's not a creative subject, but we're talking about, supporting people and giving them the skills and the knowledge they need to be sort of like happy, healthy adults. It would make more sense to pair those together.
Absolutely. It's I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, you can, if you're in your 30s, you can either diet or go to the gym and you'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
In your 40s, at a push, it'll be the same. Once you get past mid-40s, early 50s, you've got to do both.
Yeah.
You've got to do both.
But it's understanding both, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just, we're going to learn about fitness over here.
Yeah.
It's the food element that goes with it, and they should be together for you to understand what that's going to do with your body, so you know what.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, most gym owners, I've spoken to a few gym owners, practically all of them say abs are made in the kitchen. I don't have any, so I couldn't concentrate.
It's fine.
Well, so I've got quite a way to look, I think. But no, it's, but yeah, I think that is one of those things, at least, because I think I've noticed sort of a lot of teenage lads as well. They're going to the gym, and so they are working quite hard, and a lot of them can get away with it. But there is, if they're going to take it seriously, they know they have to look at the nutrition.
Yeah.
So I mean, is that something that you look at in your classes, or is that something that's maybe they're not quite there yet in terms of?
Yeah, not perhaps in our sort of after school clubs.
Yeah.
Definitely when we're in schools, we're delivering that and we're linking across to science.
Right.
To bringing in the nutrition to their projects.
What kind of age ranges are you dealing with?
So we do all the way up, sort of from 18 months right the way up to 16 years.
So 18 months?
Yeah, 18. Yeah. So 18 months we're talking about, so that's our preschoolers. So we've actually had 2 sessions running this morning. We run one on a Tuesday afternoon as well. So children will come along with their parents, and we link a recipe to either a key theme in this, in the calendar. Today's Valentine's Day, so they are making a treat this week. It's Valentine's biscuits they're making. But other days we might be making Gruffalo crumble, or we might be making, so last week it was Chinese spring rolls, sort of that sort of thing. And children will do as much as they can themselves. We get magic strewn out and we tie the goat's hands up so that the children crack their eggs. Scary for some because they don't like mess and obviously food waste, but for us it's about them seeing the process and them doing it. You want the children to develop these skills so that by the time they get at the age that they need to start cooking for themselves, it's not, I don't know how to do that, it's just a natural, well, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it does make sense. I'm recalling when I first went to university, and I don't know what your experience was, but it's like sort of been in the kitchen, and I'd done a bit at home, not a lot, and there's me and I was living with a few other lads at the time. They were all just sort of like looking around each other, wondering how we start.
It's sort of a flip, isn't it, between a friend who's living off noodles and then somebody who is. So I was quite good, actually. I was quite fortunate in that way that my mum and dad always cooked at home, so I was sort of used to, even though my active cooking sort of career didn't begin until sort of like a little bit later on. They always cook, so I was made some dumplings for myself. I'm a like Sunday dinner type of girl. Right? So I was quite lucky. But other friends, they'd open their cupboard and it was just packets of noodles.
I think I was probably that friend. What is fascinating though is I remember because my mum actually went to university as a mature student after I'd been, because she's always been an artist. She's like a local artist in the town, and she I think she didn't get the A-level grades that she wanted to get into the university that she wanted. And she did get offered a place, but she decided she wanted to just explore and sort of went travelling down to London at the time instead. So she went to university after I'd gone, and I remember like a little manual that she left for my dad, because she started before I did. I had a week at home with my dad, and obviously I'd been living on my own, so I had sort of learned to, in a very loose sense, look after myself. We were both working, but I remember I did all the cooking every night, because I got home, I was doing a 6 while 2 shift, and my dad finished at 4, and so I cooked for him every night of the week. And then on Friday, it's like, my dad's, I'll take a turn on Friday then. And then I just remember it's like he got home, and he gave me money to go for a Chinese. But I mean, after that, he did have to sort of get used to it, because I mean, he wanted to support my mum in just achieving something that she wanted to achieve, which was amazing in itself. But it is interesting, just those stereotypes that I don't think really serve anyone, because I mean, if you can't cook,
that's it. You can't eat. And ultimately, you need to eat to live, don't you? So
and it's like sort of what you learn. I mean, it's bad enough at the minute with when you see what's available in supermarkets with high sugar content and things like that. Because I wasn't aware of that until at 40. You'll not know this yet, but when you're 40, you're kind of given a sort of MOT on your body, and you're monitored for like sort of blood sugar levels, cholesterol, all this kind of thing. And in my family, we on my dad's side, we are sort of susceptible to the type 2 diabetes. I mean, there is a very reasonable argument here, don't get me wrong, to saying we're susceptible to eating too many sweets and cakes.
Yeah.
But I do believe that you could get two people eating the same amount of sugar. One may not pick up those conditions, whereas the other might. Or some might get, I mean, they're not good for you, whatever. But I remember at that point going around the supermarket trying to cut down my sugar, and how hard it was.
Hidden everywhere, hidden.
It is.
So many different names.
But what's interesting is my cooking skills at university when I was at home were pretty much, well, I can fry some chicken, I can seal the meat so it doesn't poison us, and then I can pour some sauce over it and serve it up.
And then you look at the sauce and the sugar 7 sauce.
It's scary, isn't it? And I remember Dolmio as a company describing this, you shouldn't have it more than once a week as a treat. It's, come on, let's get real. I mean, as a treat, who's having Dolmio as your treat? I mean, it's nice sauce, don't get me wrong. But if that's my treat for the week, I want something a bit better than bloody Dolmio. But that's just, we're a treat. And I get, if you're a cake shop or something like that, yes, we're branding ourselves as a treat. And yeah, absolutely, you are. But, a cooking sauce.
But that sauce would be so much, once you've mastered how to make it, which isn't that difficult to make sort of your ragu sauce, it's obviously
easy for you to say.
It's a lot healthier, but also tying into sort of like budgeting these days. It's honestly so much less expensive than it would be to buy that jar of sauce.
Well, that's funny you should say that, because that was ultimately my solution. Most evenings I do actually cook a meal, and most of those meals I'll make from scratch. I don't buy. I mean, I have got a couple of jars because most of us are busy.
Every now and then, but I think and it's not a judgment on anybody, because we all reach for something at the cupboard, and we'll be the first to say, weekends are manic for us, and it'll be, what takeaway do we want, that type of thing. But if we've got the skills and the knowledge to make that decision, and that's sort of what I'm really big at, empowering into children, so they know that if they're wanting to have something different, and you can't buy it off a menu, this is how you make it.
Out of necessity and avoiding type 2 diabetes. I mean, I do, whether you can tell, I do go to the gym regularly, but I cook for my kids, and they, they'll come home and 5 nights out of 7, they'll have an actual cooked meal where I can tell you everything that's gone into that meal, every little ingredient, and they know that, and there's no sugar, no added sugar, apart from whatever natural sugars might be in the fruits. So just out of curiosity, because you're saying you work with all ages.
Yeah.
So, are there any age groups that you find less receptive to this kind of information?
Yeah. So at the minute we run a teen coop club once
Yeah.
a month, and I'm finding that one sort of a little bit. The girls who cook with us are absolutely lovely. The sessions are led by myself, they were originally, but it's
Yeah.
run by another team member. But I'm finding that not so much that they're less susceptible to the information, but like, are they too cool to
Yeah.
cook?
It's
Is where we're at, I think, being that sort of preteen teenage. But I think once you pass that point of sort of like, it's not too cool and we're really a bit more mature, I think they know now we're being booked by sort of local family hubs to run cooking on a budget and health eating sessions. So I know that there's a need out there for it, and they usually do have a good uptake. So people are interested in enjoying and attending. I think it's just getting over that sort of.
That's another thing actually, the whole cooking on a budget thing. So are you getting a lot of that sort of work?
Yeah,
Are you?
yeah, at the moment, yeah.
I suppose at the minute we're in sort of quite sort of lean times. I mean, I was at a parish council meeting the other night where we were chatting with the local cricket club and also the local councillors, and everyone's talking about budgets being down. And I think that is impacting on families. And I've been seeing, I don't know how reliable they are, but I've been seeing statistics about the high percentage of people that don't have any savings whatsoever, and the actual low sort of median incomes that we've got, very low household incomes. And so, when did this start to pick up? Like the
I think, if I'm honest, it's always been there. I just think it's become more sort of at the forefront over the past sort of 2 or 3 years. We work with Durham County Council a lot for the holiday clubs through the
Yeah.
Fun and Food project.
Yes, I
So
think that's what my wife heard.
yeah. So that's obviously one of the key focuses is making sure children receive a hot, healthy meal in the holidays.
Yes.
And so obviously that there tells me there's a need for it because to support families during the holidays when it is sort of really expensive time if your children aren't in school, you usually receive sort of free school meals and that sort of thing. But I think even without sort of being in that group that maybe need a little bit more financial support, just in general for me, and I wouldn't like to say that I'm tight when it comes to food, but I am. I'll go like, well, no, because I can make this. We're going to have this tonight because then we've got the money to do something, a nice day out or.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of my viewpoint, but that's been my viewpoint on a few different things as well.
That's interesting because since I started cooking, I'm a lot more reluctant to buy takeaways.
Yeah.
Because I think I can actually make this. I know what's in it. It's far healthier.
Yeah.
And I think they started calling it fake when I'm never into the buzzword.
No, yeah. So we actually run a fakeaway project with year
Oh, right.
sixes in a local primary school. So they'll make their own sort of burgers. We do a pizza, we do a curry, and we usually do something like Chinese fried rice or sort of what's it called, honey chili chicken, something like that with them. So it is sort of the idea of right, you fancy a pizza and
You need to do that.
I love honey chili
yeah,
chicken.
it's one of our favourites.
I bet it is. It's so I mean, just out of interest, I mean, in your view, how easy is it to eat healthily?
It is quite tricky, I think is it. I find it tricky as a busy mum to work in. It's the prep, isn't it, for me? That's what, you come in after a long day, if you're organised and you've meal planned and we're going to have this on this day and this on this day, and it's in the house and maybe you've prepped it a little bit before, fine, absolutely fine. But you throw in one busy day where you're in really late and it could all go out the window.
I'm pleased you said that actually, because I mean, it's interesting, like I said, when you sort of, you've got to look at your own habits.
Yeah.
And when a doctor's saying, look, your blood sugar levels are going really high, your cholesterol's higher than it should be, you need to address this, otherwise in 10 years, you are going to have a problem. Yeah. And when you've got someone that looks at you like that and tells you, and it's, I think a lot of people, certainly my age, would have gone through it because the amount of alcohol that's prevalent in society that, is just sort of accepted as part of our culture. And it is because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun, we all like a drink. But there are consequences. And I think, as I've said, and you did sort of I'm pleased agree with me that when you're going around the supermarket as well and you're looking at all this hidden sugar content, and you're then forced to look at, right, okay, then prepping. But I think there has been the narrative that, oh, well, the fruit and veg is dead cheap and things like that. But
Yeah.
it's actually not that cheap.
No, it's not, and it's about looking at what's in season. So
Yeah.
what is ready available to eat can be less expensive, but if you're looking for something that's not in season, then it's gonna push
Yeah.
push those prices up.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that people often do neglect, it's like when you look at the adverts on, I mean, people aren't watching so much linear TV anymore. It's like, yeah, but you still get adverts for your sweets, crisps, fast food, and you've got a multi-billion-dollar industry, you know, and they're spending that money for a reason. They spend that amount of money. It's clever people spending it because it works.
Yeah.
And then you've got your maybe sort of government initiative, maybe someone like you that's, you know, selling your business from the heart because you believe in it, and it doesn't really compare. So you've got all this masses of money saying, "Eat this. It's, you know, it's great. It tastes nice, fantastic."
And for me, one of the issues I think is sometimes these sort of programs from the government can come across like they're aiming towards certain groups rather than aiming towards the mass. You know, if this was really filtered in throughout schools, throughout your education, it would become just naturally normal. You know, we're told you should do PE because it's really good, it keeps your body healthy, you know, that sort of thing. But where's cooking and all this? So you know, it's not really on the timetable in many primary schools.
I've not really thought about it like that, and you're absolutely right.
So then you leave school at, you know, now 18, it's when you get compulsory education, and it's like, right, I've got to fend for myself, but I might have had 6 weeks for 2 years in secondary school of recipes that don't really relate sometimes to what I would normally eat or my family would normally eat. So then I'm like out there, what, you know, you're at a bit of a loss, aren't you? You're sort of setting yourself up to fail, and then it's like, you know, 10 days later, let's go on a diet. But they should, you know, and we talk about diets with young children. We say to them, I'm going to say the word diet. What does that mean to you? And I have to specifically explain, especially to younger ones, I'm not saying I want you to go on a diet. I'm saying a diet is what we eat on a regular basis. And it's sort of introducing the word in that, you know, it should be more of a natural way than...
As opposed to,
Yeah.
I mean,
as
again,
opposed
it's
to
really
the weight
interesting.
loss, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what that, you know, the first thing I think of is my mum, who would, I mean, my mum has never been a big woman. She's always, you know, she's always been sort of slim, really. She'd never see herself like that, which I think is a real shame. I think that's sort of possibly something about women and pressure they feel within as part of themselves. But I do remember my mum going on frequent diets, and I'd be sat there with my cheese sandwich. I'd cheese sandwiches every day and tomato soup at lunch for my mum. And my mum would be sat there with these two sorry-looking biscuits, limits they were called, limits. I mean, and that's kind of what you're saying, isn't it? It's like, so I'm on a diet, and I'm allowed to eat limits.
Yeah,
It's just utterly preposterous way to put that forward, when what you're saying is we've got the knowledge out there. You're making a living from delivering what in many ways could be so easily delivered in schools and then supplemented by you.
Yeah. I think it is. It's a time issue for schools, especially in primary schools. It's a time issue. It's the specialist sort of knowledge, if you like, or the in a lot of the time the budget restraints. I don't know if you know about it, but they'll fall on a teachers, especially in primary school. So if you want something for your class, you buy out your personal pocket.
Yes.
And you know, you can't always justify that, can you? You're trying to.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, what did strike me, because I mean, I'm assuming that when you taught, you were teaching in the Northeast.
Yes.
Yeah. What is interesting is when you go down to London, and they get a London weighting, but when you compare what they're paying in rent or mortgage compared to what we're paying up in, like, sort of in terms of what you're saying, yes, I was aware that happened. But if you're in London, you're not far from poverty line, really. When you look at your outgoings compared to your income, it is quite scary. But I mean, so coming back to Creative Kitchen, then you seem like you've got a lot of classes and a lot of things going off here, there and there. What's you seem and you've grown fairly rapidly, I would say,
Yeah, I think.
successfully.
Yeah, I think I'd like to say if it wasn't for COVID, we might have got there a bit quicker. But obviously, COVID probably helped us as well in a
Yeah.
way. So we ended up cooking online. We had about 50 families a week cooking online with us.
Wow.
Yeah. Obviously making all sorts of recipes. You have
Yeah.
one that sticks in my mind. If there's biscuits, it's treat week. And we made them, and there was just crumbs. I'd cook along with my girls.
Yeah.
Who at the time were, I think it was 18 months. And there was just crumbs. There was no biscuits. There was just crumbs on my sort of table. And I'm like, I hope yours look better than mine. Well, you know yourself, Barry, that things never sort of always don't go to plan, do they? When
No.
you're online. But that's a memory that's still.
But oh, fantastic. So, what's the future looking like for you?
Hopefully still busy. We are hoping to branch out more. I've got quite a few projects in mind. Lots of ideas whizzing around. Franchising is possibly on the cards.
I was just going to mention franchising.
Yeah, it's something we've thought about for a while, and it's, have I got time to do it? I need to make time to do it. So hopefully, yeah, I'll be franchising soon.
That's brilliant. Well, I mean, certainly listen to your story. Everything's sounds absolutely fantastic. There's a passion behind it. There's a knowledge there and a proper message for any young people. And as I say, the reputation that I've heard would encourage anyone that might be interested in this to check you out. So Jemma, thank you so much for coming on. I'm pleased you did agree to come on. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.
Yeah.